All right, so it's the Parks Commission meeting of January 14th. And for the purposes of open meeting law, this meeting is being recorded. If you guys don't mind, I think I'd like to take a couple things out of order just so we can get rid of them on the agenda.
It's fine with me.
So I put on here about requests from mendonma Youth Soccer about Grover Field. Chris Hadfield reached out. I just got to find his email. Hang on a second. I won't search there. I guess so. This mendonma Youth Soccer wants to take Grover Field offline for the season to do some repairs to it. Houston wants to take Grover offline for the entire spring and run a full season treatment plan. We're working on getting a second quote. We want to double check, make sure no one rents this coming spring before I commit. Whoever we would hire would also provide guidance on when to mow. We'd aim to reopen it around mid-June for evaluations and summer league activities. Does this work for you? There's nobody else that really uses that field other than youth soccer. So I guess that's, I wish they had said something before we spent money reseeding the thing. We didn't reseed the whole thing. Alan Greenberg just went out and overseeded the patches that weren't growing in. But then again, I guess it's their money.
So I mean, so is there a cost to the Parks Department, or is this just they're taking it offline and they're doing the maintenance on it?
Yeah, I think they would foot the bill. There's a chance they may ask to waive the fees, although soccer has never asked to waive fees in exchange for work like the other groups do. But yeah, they would be footing the bill. The only ask of us is that we would then shut it down so we're not renting it out for another group.
I mean, how many groups do we typically rent that out to?
Pretty much just soccer.
I mean,
I think the only other group that was interested was at one point was lacrosse or something, or field hockey, but they've used Clough, and I think they have their other game fields. I mean, that ties into the bigger field discussion. Grover really isn't used outside of the soccer club.
Yeah, just give me a second. I'm gonna make a phone call here quick.
That's all right.
It really has to get done, right? So
yeah, I mean,
they're impacted more than anybody else for the most part, right?
Yeah, I'll wait for John and recap what happened on the field or what the condition is, but second.
Kind of obviously off topic, but it related to the parks. How did the thing for Tom Bellin go?
It was fine. Jeremy said a few words. I think Elena, they read the proclamation from the select board, and then I read our parks presentation. John ended up having to leave because he had to plow because it was that night that it snowed. But no, it was nice to see everybody. And
all right, I'm back.
All right, so I said just to recap, maybe I don't know if you guys had filled in on the whole saga here. So the deal with Grover, they reseeded. I think they aerated and seeded the field in the very early spring. Unfortunately, the irrigation was not up and running yet. And then we had all those issues where the well pump was dead. So the grass was fairly brown over there. We did finally get the irrigation running. It mostly greened up. We had Alan Greenberg come in and reseed the few areas that weren't growing in. But that was pretty much in the late fall. So there hasn't been a chance to stuff to grow in. So, I mean, I'd be interested in knowing this full scope of what they want to do, but I guess they're really the only ones who use it. I mean, it's not their field, but if they want to invest in it and
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think it's hurt
we
me.
really, I mean, if they're really the only ones that use it and they're just looking for us to approve shutting it down for the spring and not letting anybody else use it so that they can do maintenance on it, I don't have a problem with that, especially where it's not costing anything to the town. They're handling it.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah, I
that's
agree.
kind of my thought.
So do we need to make a motion on that?
I don't know if it needs a vote. I'll tell Chris that we're in agreement with their plan. I think I'm gonna ask him to like send
Let
us
us,
the
yeah,
quote
let
before
us
they
know
pull
what
the
they're
trigger.
doing. And then just like a timeline. So we said spring. Are
Yeah.
we talking soon as the snow's gone till June, or like what, just a timeline on how long it's gonna be closed down, I guess we need to know, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine.
And
So
then
I'll
as far as the saga of them treating the field and then irrigation not being up, it just sounds like the communication wasn't there. Like, hey, we're gonna do this. Can we make sure irrigation's on? You know?
yeah, and some of that was probably my fault for not being crystal clear that it was in much poorer condition than we initially thought, that it was just flipping a switch. They asked us to mark irrigation heads and then went and whatever, but it's running now at least. So there's still a little bit of work to be done, but it works. So I'll let Chris know then, that just to confirm the plans with us.
Okay. I mean, I'm fine with that, AJ.
Yeah, same here. Yeah.
All right. And then I don't know if there's much to talk about. I put the polar plunge on here. I think, and I guess I'll submit it. I think we probably should treat this as a facility use application. So the Brothers of the Brush are coming to Parks to book the beach for this event.
Yeah, sorry,
Or-
but we're gonna postpone it till the
We're
next.
thinking,
Yeah, Pete and I met and we kind of got into a lot of deal. First of all, it was a double book, February
Oh,
1st
yeah.
tournament, which regardless, it was again, it was some miscommunication there on my part, but and then the more we thought about it, we just figured we kind of want to make it a little bit of a bigger deal than just people paying. And then we were trying to figure out how do we get people to come, have them pay, if they don't go in the water, we don't want to make them pay, like a family of 4 or 5, we don't want them to pay.
Yeah.
They're not going in the water. We got where I think we probably started getting into the fine detail too late. But, fortunately we have a lot more detail, and Pete and I felt like, let's just wait. We also feel, and I'm on the board, of course, but that the board needs to give us more direction, because we just need to know Pete's point, which is really good point. Is if it's a new event, let's have some protocols in place so we know exactly what we should be doing. We also, the research I did again, which was late, but a lot of places that do these, it's a fundraiser, and it's similar to what we did with the 350th.
Yeah.
And to do it that route, say, hey, if you raise so much money, you get a T-shirt, blah blah blah. So we got some work to do. So the bottom line is we decided to postpone. We'll wait till next year.
Yeah. Well, I think, and I don't know, it's not really on the agenda. I know Jeremy mentioned to me that I think he's thinking about trying to organize some sort of community type 5K event.
Yeah, so I told them I would help them out with that, but
So that might be something that comes back around.
I don't know funding wise how it's going to be handled. So it's a discussion that I need to have with Jeremy and Jennifer as to what we're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think it sounded like the hope was to try and utilize some grant funds, but maybe there's a way in the future to. I mean, I guess the polar plunge, I guess, have to be in the winter if we do it that way, but it's hard to. You don't necessarily want to do it on New Year's Day.
I mean, taking off my. I'm not putting on my brother's hat, but yeah, I think New Year's Day would be the seller for that.
That was when they did it. that time. And I don't know if there's other ones in the area that compete I mean, it was a good fundraiser, but if, take the time and figure out what it's for and the shirts and all that. And I know Pete had lots of other ideas too about different things that could go with it.
Yeah,
Wanna
that's
do
the
all
other thing
that.
that kind of slowed us down a bit was we talked about, okay, it's too late to do any kind of a chili cook-off. It's too late, blah, blah, blah. So we definitely kind of want to take time to really think it through better. And then even at time, to get the memberships input too. So, but yeah, we really want to do it. We just want to do it right. That was probably the most important point Pete made is we don't want to do a bad event. We want to do it right. So we want to make sure we got everything sorted out and, even if it's not necessarily a lot of people, at least we've done it right, and it's a good event.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, with any event, the first year you do it is going to be small, and you just need to grow it every year.
Right.
And if you continue to do this and we make it an annual thing, that happens.
Yep. Yep.
All right, so that are
Hey,
those,
Dan,
and
do
then
me a favor,
Yep.
John. I actually used to do. I used to direct 5Ks at work in the old days. I'd love to help out with that if Jeremy's looking for any other input, help with it.
Yeah, I told them the same thing.
Thanks,
Because I told them I would get involved in it because they need to figure out routes and
Yep.
so I jumping into it full feet. So I will definitely let them know that you're interested in helping.
Yeah, thanks. We actually had a route. We were going to do one. I forget through the parks, whatever number of years ago. And I think I actually had done a route that was a pretty good route, to go. That gave us the 3 point whatever we need if we're just doing a 5K. Start and end at the beach.
yeah, maybe it'd be good to
So
set
I don't
up
know.
like
I
meeting
don't
at some
because it's not on the agenda. Can we talk about it? But the last email I got from Jennifer was saying that they can't use the Maya grant for the funding for this.
Oh.
And when I had talked to them using the park as a base and having something at the park, like you start and end there with like a party afterwards.
Yeah.
So they say it's not going to happen now if they can't use the funding, but is parks funding available as an option for that?
I mean, I would rather see if it can be done. I mean, I don't know what kind of funding we're talking about. We're talking about $500, that's no problem. Or if we can get sponsorships or try and get it to be self-funding.
That's kind of what I had said to
know.
Jeremy is like sponsorships and stuff, but we have to figure out how big you want to make this.
Yeah.
Are you talking bounce houses and stuff afterwards? And obviously you need the finish line and the time tracking and everything is a cost. So
Yeah.
I hate to see them not do it because they don't have the Maya grant if there's money available to make this event happen. Because I mean, he wants to make this a community event, and I completely understand. There was a discussion about where the cardboard boat race is 25 years. They were talking about maybe you do a Saturday morning 5K, something at the park, and then Saturday afternoon cardboard boat race, and make it a whole day thing. But
I did talk to Andrew. I think the library is not, they don't want to do a weekend. But I think they're still trying to find a date that works because I guess the circus is late. But yeah, I mean,
I'm gonna go talk to him because we discussed this back when the last one happened, and I said, you make this a Saturday and make it a big event, you're gonna make it a big event. It's tough to do a weeknight, especially during the summer when people are on vacation.
Yeah, if you have a chance to stop in and talk to him, maybe give him your thoughts and see what he thinks. I think it's kind of their event, and I think they don't always want to rock the boat because they haven't and it worked. But like you said, it has the potential to be a big, huge celebration.
It should be. It's the 25th anniversary of it, and I told them we start talking about it in January. You get all the town departments to do something. You could get a lot of you could get a lot of participation for that charity part of the race.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm not
I
sure
think-
what, is Jeremy giving you any sense of what, I'm not sure the upfront costs, what there are. You know,
For
you
what?
gotta have
For the-
details.
For the 5K.
Yeah,
Here,
So that's what we are starting to figure out. And
I might have a little bit.
but I did what, the only cost I can think of, obviously t-shirts, things like that, but even Chad's got the guy he works with, he doesn't need to give him the numbers till like 10 days before the event.
yeah, and it's all about sponsorships.
Yeah, and what I eventually did at the hospital when I did the 5Ks, I hired a company to come in. They were a race group, so to speak, and they did all the timing. They did a ton of the work, and that was like a cost, but it was so well worth it because, you know, we were getting, for example, we were getting like high school kids that were using these race results for college. You know, they were hoping it would help them with. So you get some real serious runners that come in. So you can't just have kind of like a fun little. And the other thing actually we talked about, which is something again, you know, I'd be happy to sit down, but we were doing a walk. You could do a walk as well.
Yeah,
and
this is,
all those
and that's
want to come in.
that's what he was saying is this would be a walk run.
Yeah.
So you could do either or.
And you get all the
So-
people that, you know, like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go run. I'm not at that point, but I would walk. You know, I would love to, but I just don't know. I have to look back. I don't know if I have those files, but I don't think there's a ton of upfront cost.
I pulled the 350th numbers. The total expenses were $1,800 for that turkey trot.
Yeah, and I can get the updated numbers from
So,
Lindsay to
Right.
find out what it
There you
costs.
go.
And that's
Yeah.
what I told him I would do.
Right.
And it
But
profited
you would,
$5,000.
but you also, I've also confirmed this week that the Rock the Block event is happening this year again.
Oh.
So I was like, we don't want to step on their toes and make a big community event 2 weeks before theirs.
Do you know, I guess, have they picked a date for that? Or have they not gotten that
No,
far?
but typically it's the last weekend in September.
Because that's critical that we make sure that as early as
Yeah,
possible.
I think
stuff
that was
gets-
just because I
Yeah.
posed
No,
the
yeah.
question to them this week. They were like, yeah, we're gonna do it.
Yeah.
So I think now that you will start to see more information about it.
Yeah.
Just my other comment to circle back to this, like this whole discussion, is I think this ties into the discussion we're about to have about our budget and maintenance and staffing, that these are things that parks could pursue if we weren't spending 90% of our time just running around trying to keep the lights on and deal with the, you know, like we can't take on any new projects and new activities and new events
Agreed.
because we're so,
And,
you
I
know, so
mean, if you
if
want
there's
to jump
support
in,
from,
if you want to
Jeremy.
jump into that discussion, I totally
Yeah.
agree. So there's been, well, what is Dan? If the maintenance goes away from Dan, what is Dan going to be doing? Well, Dan can be doing what he's supposed to be doing and has had to neglect to an extent to like, for one, communication with the youth groups. We just talked about there was a miscommunication with soccer. So that's more time for communication with these groups as to what they're going on, what's expected, what do they want to do, but also things like this. This gives more, it's more time for programming and the recreation side of it, because you wouldn't have to worry about maintenance.
yeah, exactly. I mean, there's between that or like this field, you know, being able to be more active on this field committee and stuff like that, that really, I think Parks is going to need to take the lead on and not be worried about having to go spend 3 days a week sitting on a mower.
Yeah, no, and you shouldn't have to. That's not your job.
So I think, yeah, if we want to circle back now to the, so just, I have no updates on the field lighting project. I will reach out to them to find out what the status is. The last I heard, they were following up with Musco on the design aspect. So we're just probably going to check in with them and make sure they understand, like, I mean, they signed a contract, but it's going to all happen real quick here. Unfortunately, there probably will be some impacts into the spring baseball season, but I think that's going to be the necessary evil of getting this done.
I remember the discussion we had with them when we were
Yeah.
doing the bid openings, and then again when we told them they awarded the bid, that was the question that I posed. What impacts is it going to have on baseball?
So, I mean, I guess the good news is most of the work will be outside of the home run fences, so it may not be as
And
bad
that's
as
what
we
he
think.
said. I recall he said we can work around that schedule.
Yep.
So, let's see that. And then I guess, yeah, so we want to talk about the budget and then this proposal for the new maintenance position. I don't have the draft annual report and I don't have any minutes yet, so maybe we'll have to meet again. That's turning into a much bigger project than I thought.
AJ, I mean, Dan and I have been talking about this the past week or so about proposing the full-time maintenance facilities and grounds person within the fiscal 26 budget that would take that responsibility away from Dan.
I think now's the time to put together this proposal. I think Jeremy's open to it.
He is
laying the groundwork.
It's the way we discussed it would be that that particular person works under the maintenance coming out of highway.
Yep.
And then it gives us the flexibility to float somebody from highway to work with parks and vice versa. And then that full-time person would be responsible for, what do we say, Dan? 2 seasonal staff at extended seasons?
So yeah, I think the way this would probably work, so if you use $24 an hour for the salary at 40 hours a week, that's roughly 50,000 a year plus insurance. That could be as high as 30,000. So I think 75,000 is a reasonable estimate for the annual cost of this full-time person.
So that full-time person, if it's going to come in here and work underneath our union, would be 23.30, and if it ends up being a foreman, as we had proposed before, then it's an extra $1 an hour, so 24.30 an hour.
Okay, so plus or minus a little bit. But then we would hire. I mean, based on the previous talk when we put this for that PowerPoint, if you brought in 2 seasonal workers at $20 an hour, 40 hours a week. If they just work 19 weeks, so mid-May to mid-September, fits with it. We have 32,500 in the budget. That fits within the budget. That's money we already have for maintenance, our seasonal crew. The only potential, so the 19 weeks is because if they go more than 20 weeks, we have liability for unemployment when they get laid off at the end of the year. If we don't care about that, they could do like 26 weeks. We need another $7,000. But I think we were saying the other day, having a solid person, they can work by themselves. They can pull a guy from highway as needed, like to prep for opening day. And then in the early June, July, they have the crew with them.
Yeah,
that's probably more than adequate.
You guys think the select board is really aware of the amount of work involved? Do they, like, even sometimes I'm like, holy cow,
the work involved with the maintenance crew,
how much work it is, and that this person would be really busy. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I can speak to, Dan can speak to it. I can speak to it from my years on the parks back in when my teens and early 20s. The amount of work we did then was nonstop, and we've only added more infrastructure since then.
Yeah.
And we had a Dickie Joyner was like the maintenance supervisor. He was part-time, and then we had at least 3 seasonal employees that worked for him. And we never had downtime. We always had stuff going on.
But I think that's that's another really, really, really important point that we've struggled with over the years lately, is the fact of how do you actually make sure these guys are getting stuff done. And when you have a 20-year-old as your foreman, it's a lot different than someone that's really invested, and really.
Yeah, and that is a plus to this full-time position. If you have,
Right.
like you said, a 19, 20-year-old that it's a summer job for them, it's just a job and they don't care, they're getting a paycheck. Whereas if you have somebody this is your full-time job, your raises are going to be based on this. Like you got somebody that cares
Yeah.
and make sure things are getting done right.
Right, and I think you're walking into a situation where this individual has got months behind them. They're not coming in at the same time as these new kids. So you have, a guy who is a dedicated employee, which we've had, but now he's got these two younger kids that are coming under his wing all of a sudden, and he's got to focus on that. With this guy, this individual, could be a woman, the individual is going to, experience speaks volumes for what to expect out of a supervisor, So,
Yeah.
and having that relationship with you, John, is critically important. I've said it before, and I think that's what I really love about the fact of you and you, Dan. We're locals that are really invested in the community. And as you mentioned, John, you can't quite expect that of a college kid, a high school kid.
I mean, they're out there, but it's rare.
Yeah, and they're looking for 25, 20, you know what I mean? They're going to be looking for more money because they kind of know what. I think today's employee knows what they bring to the table if they're somebody you can really count on. And they're going to want more. I don't know. I just think, obviously, I'm very much.
I can tell you right now that if it's a foreman position down here, there are a couple guys on highway that may be interested in moving over to that.
Yeah.
Which
like it could be.
Yeah, you got to play the numbers, but to say we get somebody from highway that switches over to that, because they're in the union, they would stay at where they are right now for a salary plus the $1 an hour. But does it really matter, because then the person that you hire to replace them is coming in at the starting rate.
Right.
So It's really the $1 an hour is the difference.
Yeah,
so
right.
with that, if it's a union, if it becomes a union, is it guaranteed it's a union position?
I think this position, however, sorry.
If it's 20 weeks, you said it was different, but does that mean it's a union position at 19 weeks as well, no matter what?
No, we're talking about
two different things.
We're talking about the full-time position, not the part-time.
Oh, okay.
It would have to be union. My only concern is we also, and maybe this study we just met about this morning will change it. I only make 25, 24 an hour, so we can't bring somebody on and pay them more than you're paying me to do the work that I was doing. That's going to be a problem. And I think Jeremy, hopefully they're cognizant of those issues, but that's a conversation that maybe I need to have with them.
But you're not from Parks.
It is.
I am in the union.
You can't also bring somebody in and put them in the highway department union and expect them to hold hoisting license, CDL license, and have the availability to operate the heavy machinery. And no offense to you, Dan, but you don't have the ability to do that. They got to come in at that 24.
Oh yeah, I think these are the issues that this study is going to bring to light that need to be addressed.
I totally agree.
Hopefully they're aware of all that.
Yeah, but can you take a different approach? It may not work, but you can't be supervising somebody that makes more than you, right? That's the way it was for us. We were union, and it's
no, you can't. But he wouldn't be.
Right?
He would not be supervising them. They would be under me.
Yeah.
And that would just be a collaboration between Dan and I for discussion as to, okay, what needs to be done? The grass is slowing down now. What projects do we have that we can work on this summer? And that's just a discussion between the parks director and the maintenance side of it.
Yeah, I mean, it does separate it, right? Because they like you said, the work for you. I'm trying to visualize this in my head, and you really wouldn't have much more than a relationship with John, right, Dan? And I think what's going to be tough to sell it for you is the fact that you have less work. Just to be completely.
But I've already talked about that with Jeremy, and I don't see it being an issue and that's where we need to, in order to.
No, I'm not
really
saying,
get this.
I'm saying Dan, more money. I'm saying making more money might be a little bit of a tough unless you're referring to that. I'm not saying, forget
Well, I
about
think,
the guy per se, what they're making, but the fact that, I would think they would say, well, if you're going to be, losing, it's a fair amount of work. And if that is given to you, John, then
But
Dan's salary stays the same, right? Would they consider?
So I see your point, but I beg to differ. Dan's doing work that isn't even within his job description. It's not work that Dan is supposed to be doing. It's
Yeah, no,
he,
no, it's not I would never make that point to anybody. I know it's public now because it's being recorded. I'm kind of, I guess, devil's
well, the
advocate.
maintenance work is in my job
So-
description at
so-
this point. That's how
But
we
I
made
think
it full
you have to-
time.
Again, we've said this before, though. I think you have to really, really be able to put that down on paper at the same time of this is all the stuff I do, and now I can do. I can really focus
yeah,
on.
and that was what I was going to say, Dan, is we need to have a list of like, okay, now that I'm not doing the maintenance on how many hours a week you're doing this maintenance, I'm able to do X, Y, and Z, which I should have been doing from the beginning, but I didn't have the time to do. I think that's
Right.
where we need to push to sell
But-
this.
I'll also mention, and I'm hopefully this study will reflect that my position is easily $5 under the market rate for a director of
Oh,
Parks and
there's-
Recreation.
There's a lot
Forget
of
about
people.
All this
There's
other
a lot
stuff.
of people in this town, so hopefully, like you said, that
You know.
this new study will reflect that because everybody is underpaid compared to other towns.
But to answer I think I have had conversations like with my Goddard about this. There's all sorts of, capital projects, planning. I mean, we're like kind of doing one thing at a time. There's so much work that could be getting done more.
That you don't have the time for, and that's what
Yeah.
we need to sell is that the stuff that we're not doing
Organizing
because
these
we don't have the
events,
time.
or even, focusing on some of the more detail oriented tasks because, yeah.
I mean, you could really, I've always been a big fan of being very concrete with the info, the data, but you could easily show all these different things that are what you might call pending because you don't have the time.
Yeah.
I mean, show all these projects that are really sitting and waiting and
I think that's how we sell this. When we
Yeah.
do a presentation, that's how we need to sell it. Look at it's benefiting the town to have a full-time person. It's benefiting highway to have that full-time person in the winter. It's benefiting parks because now all of these things that have been sitting waiting to be addressed and haven't been addressed because they don't have the time to do it. Parks doesn't have the time to do it. Now we can focus on these because the maintenance is falling to a different person or a different department or however you want to word it.
Yeah, you're right.
right.
Well, I mean, and I think the other thought I had too, if you flip it around, we could also turn around and hire somebody to, do programming and do the park side of things and leave it. But I think you'd end up paying that person more than you'd pay the maintenance person. So it's more cost effective to
And I don't want to sound like
and
I'm
share these
advocating for
resources.
highway, but there's benefits to having that person when it comes to the highway department as well. We're contracting out a full-time, or not a full-time, but a part-time driver for snow and ice operations. With the CDL, we wouldn't have to do that anymore. That person that comes in would then fill in or be that sixth person every time we go out,
Right. Or
which
like
is a
we were
huge
saying,
benefit.
being able to like split into two crews where you have basically two
So
foremen.
yep,
It expands a lot of what highway can do.
it does. And it's going to expand a lot of what parks can do. If you said, hey, I got this project and I need another person, another operator, somebody to drive a truck. Now you could take the backhoe and a dump truck, which right now you can't do without taking two people from highway. You give one person and you have the guy that works on parks and you can get these projects done and you're still not affecting the way that highway's operating for that day.
Yeah, even to the level of when the person can start and when we have to wait every year. Always have to wait till the kids out of college. If we have a real dry, we can get out there in April. We can't. You're out there, and then at the end of the season, you're the one dealing with all the leaves because all the kids
now
are in school.
There's work to be done right now.
Watching the townspeople, I think, because we see it on social media. You see people saying they complain, and then someone will step in and say, hey, you know, he's working his ass off and we need the help, and I'm sure they, you know, the select boards has seen that as well. You would think they'd support it. I know money's money, but you would think they'd be. I think it makes all kinds of sense in the world that that person report to you, John, and that it just fulfills so many different needs.
And then part of this discussion that Dan and I had would be, if we can make this work, money gets appropriated special or annual town meeting in May, we hit the ground with interviews so that this person can start July 1st when the money's there.
Yeah.
I think, you know,
even at a town meeting, man, the graphics you could show of, we all drive around town and you just can't keep up with it. Once these guys, before they start, and then they hit the ground running. If by chance, you know, it's a real one of those years and you can't predict it ever, you know, and then they're already behind the 8 ball, or you're out there when it's. I think that's what we got to show them. You know, when you're doing all this planning, all the busiest time of the year, and then you've got to consider how we're going to keep all this property maintained, prepping it right for the season, and then keep up what it's at. We all know that. You go out in your yard and the amount of work you do, whether it's the end of the season or the beginning of the season, somebody's got to do it.
I think that's the biggest challenge, is the biggest time to do the stuff that I need to do that's not maintenance is April and May.
Right.
And then in September, you know, when it's still nice out, and you can spend some time and take on some projects that immediately, right, you said the kids go back to school, we immediately have to stop everything and jump back onto the mowing. So, I mean, it seems like now, you know, the budget, the town, you know, not like the town has insane surpluses, but we seem to have the money to start looking at these expansions. And I think before we add new positions and new departments and new buildings, we need to fund, you know, so-called level services, like keep up with what we're currently have.
Exactly. And I can't stress that enough. I've had multiple conversations about that, is that we can't add new infrastructure to this town when we don't even have the staff to maintain what we have.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That was the whole senior center piece, you know, I mean, that was part of it.
I didn't want to go there, but
it's true, though. I mean, you know, I like the idea, but who was going to maintain it? That was never discussed.
Yep.
So I think what comes to mind for me, Dan, is maybe at some point very soon, can we have either you put something down on paper and we can look at it and kind of add to it, or we kind of sit, you know, that's probably the best bet. But let's start putting this together and let us help you, you know, get that.
Right. So we're kind of in a time crunch, and that was the reason for having this meeting, or one of them was, we got to have our budget requests submitted by next Wednesday.
Yeah, well, I think right now, you know, he asked for that document for new items. I think we're basically saying, you know, here's what we're looking for, here's what it costs, and let's set up a meeting to sit down and talk to you about it and flesh all this out.
Right. So,
you know, I think it'd be good to get Jeremy's perspective on this all too. Like that time we met with David all those years, whenever that was, Dimanche.
Yeah. So is that something you're going to propose in your budget, Dan?
Yeah, well, that was the next part of this, is I wanted to, so I put together what I think the parks budget proposal should be. And then this specific request is a new request, not level service, or, you know, what he's saying, additional services. So I think I'll fill out this sheet, and then I can, you know, you send it to you too, and make sure we collected everything. And I think it would be parks and highway combined for that. I mean, ultimately, I think the funds for that position probably would make more sense to fall under highway, and perhaps this maintenance wage line might eventually transfer over there if they're all going to, you know, go through your office.
Well, I think that's I mean, it's nothing. You keep the maintenance line in your budget right now, but their payroll gets processed out of here. It doesn't matter. It's just a matter of the account number.
Have you ever, I'm sorry, you might have said this already, Dan, but you looked at the two other hires, seasonal hires, do they come in a lot less than 32,000? Then is there
So here, let me pull up the sheet just to read the exact numbers. So if
anything left to like shift over? I don't know. It doesn't sound like there'd be that much, but
6, 7, 8,
yeah, maybe. You know, I mean, at least
yeah, so if we hire 2 people
it'd be full
to work
time.
40 hours a week at $20 an hour for 19, 20 weeks, that comes out to $30,000 a year. We have 32,000 in the budget.
Okay, so
So that's the money that we already have. You know, this year it can be messy because we're gonna have to hire people and make sure we have a plan in place to start the season. And you know, I think the best case scenario is if this gets approved, it may not take effect until July 1. So
Yeah,
you know,
so
we may have to restructure,
worst-
maybe have
worst-
some extra
worst-
kids.
Yeah, well, or worst case scenario is I float somebody from highway to help out with it in the meantime until that person starts July 1.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I guess maybe there's some of this isn't a conversation for the public meeting, but yeah, I think, you know, because the risk is if you're interviewing somebody new, you can't interview somebody and say, we don't know if your job exists yet. But if someone were interested in a transfer, that might be a different conversation.
or someone that's
Granted,
interested,
you still have to go through the process and
you know,
vet
somebody
everybody, but
that's John's end that might want to apply for it, and
right.
I think there may be a couple that would
So
like
that would
to
be-
apply for it. And
That- yeah,
I kind of floated that by Jeremy, and he's like, it's essentially a transfer if they're going to be on the highway union. It's just it's a transfer in the same job title or
Okay.
same grade. So it makes it easier.
And worst case, if it gets voted down and fails, they just go back to highway. You're not going to fill that. You're not going to backfill that position in the
No.
2 weeks it take for that gap.
No, right.
I
So-
feel fairly confident that it'll pass. I really do. I think the town is ready for it. I think it's just got to be really, really clear. You know, they got to see the plus. I don't know. There's no negative to this at all.
Honestly, it's the select board. I think once it gets vetted and it's in the budget package, no one will bat an eye at an extra whatever in the budget.
Think FinCom would
Yeah.
support it?
It's FinCom and select board need to support it, and I you know,
I
it sounds
think
like
that
some
if-
of them do.
I think that if we can
But-
get all of our supporting facts to them, and that's how much time Dan has spent in the past few years doing maintenance. I mean, it's all of the information that we talked about today. If we can give that to them and show them the supporting information, there's a good chance that they will agree with this. There may be some questions that we have to answer that we didn't think of, because that always seems to happen, but
Yeah.
there's a good chance.
But I think it's, you know, easily 15 out, you know, then easily 50%, 15 hours of the 30 hours or more. And I think it shows with the backlog of projects and things that either haven't been done or have taken forever to get
And
done.
that is huge, Dan. So if you have a list of backlog projects and stuff that haven't been addressed because there hasn't been time, that's huge to show them.
Yeah, well, plus, I was thinking, like, you know, how much money have we paid, you know, had to hire Sean Bellin to come in and do site work with a machine that, you know,
You
you
don't
just go
have
grab
to.
the machine from the highway and do it.
Yeah, right.
So that's all now eliminated.
Yeah.
So
Don't
let
even,
me,
and my approach to this kind of stuff is I just write down everything. Don't even worry about organizing it. Just because I'm thinking of things as you're talking and thinking of how I'd see you out there doing, I don't know the name of the cemeteries, but the one across from George Street in the
Right.
fall going, and I'm honestly going, how the hell is he keeping up with all of this? Because you're out there doing that cemetery by yourself. That cemetery in itself. And then honestly, you see the grass is high because you can't keep up, and people get
yeah,
upset.
well, that's, you know, you look at this town hall campus. I was just talking to Pete after the meeting about, you know, the campus looks like crap. You know, yeah, it's mowed, but that's it. It didn't get weeded. There's so much more that could be done. Plantings and, so here, I want to share, this is the, hang on, the draft budget. Hopefully you can see that so for FY 26, me try and get this to be legible. The far left column, the FY26 budget. And then the changes. So for the maintenance wage, I changed it a little bit. They did not put enough money in my salary for the union increases, plus the other union increases. So I got that to $3,250. I'm suggesting we just up the guards by $500. Field the same. Postage, we don't need $50 in postage. Sanitary is the beach tight tank pumping. The one that's tricky is the lights from National Grid, our electric bill. We've been going way over budget on this, and you can see if you look, it was level funded, then I raised it, then I tried level funding it again. It's just the cost of electricity are going up, plus we're going to have the cost of those field lights, which we will definitely need to charge for the use of those lights. I know they donated and all that, but that's a conversation we'll have to have. It's likely going to cost, it could cost $1 an hour to run those lights.
Yeah.
Fuel is fine, supplies is fine. And then this site improvements line, this is related to that conversation of needing to have additional funding to pay, contractors, people to come in and do weeding on some of these specialized flower beds and plantings. And Mazar asked that we add some additional funds to cover some of those costs that were just, again, it's stuff that's just not getting done.
That just goes back to that full-time person.
Work that somebody, right, that, you have somebody.
That's
October,
one of those, those things that you say, okay, we haven't been able to take care of this because we don't have we don't have dedicated staff to do this. Not dedicated, but we don't have a full-time person to address this. That's one of those things that's got to go on that list.
Right, exactly. And I think so. But yeah, so that's what I'm recommending. The only question I had is I don't know if we should do some small increases in the equipment maintenance and supplies lines just to keep up with inflation and stuff, or if I don't want to be greedy, but I also don't want to leave stuff on the table.
I would leave equipment maintenance alone until we see what happens with the full-time position and whether grounds is going to come out of this building.
Yeah, well, yeah, and ultimately that would either get, I think if this got approved next year, we'd probably look at then restructuring things and transferring things, and whether all that falls under your budget or whether we separate out, how you want to handle that.
I mean, it would get handled out of this office, but it would come out of a different budget because we have highways equipment maintenance budget, then we'd have a grounds and facilities equipment maintenance budget.
And that's still work that I'm happy, can keep doing is the more detailed maintenance on the machines and that more technical work. And I know Highway has a mechanic too, but you've certainly got enough stuff over there.
Yeah, it's hit or miss. Yeah. Sometimes he's looking for work, and other times he doesn't have enough hours in the day because it's unpredictable.
Right.
But that's also something that that full-time position in the wintertime can be changing oil on mowers, can be sharpening and adding new blades. It could be doing all kinds of equipment maintenance so you're ready to go in the spring. You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, well, and that's another shortcoming where the current crew is not doing that, so I'm having to go and change blades even when they're working. So now you've got somebody who can handle those basic tasks.
Yep, and when I was on parks, we used to do the blades. We used to sharpen them. We used to change it. We used to do all that stuff. Rainy day, there's nothing going on. You didn't go home. You did maintenance on the equipment.
So I think that, all comes to help us. But anyway, so this would be, it's a 5.8% increase of $7,100. Like I said, I don't know if we want to add a little bit to building maintenance, some of those. I mean, those lines seem fine. We seem to be keeping up with stuff. Things that are specifically costs for the camp get billed to the revolving account versus things that are more facility wide. But I don't know if you're cool with this budget or have any amendments, because I'll at least submit this to Jeremy.
No, that looks good to me.
Yeah, that's good.
And then I'll try and write up the new position for and then I'll send it to you to look over. And then we'll have to, maybe we'll set up a specific time to meet with Jeremy just about this.
Yeah, we're gonna have to, and it probably should be all three parks commissioners to do that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's a thought. If we want to maybe do it as a parks meeting, at least for that's probably a good idea. Especially if we can meet during the day, so it's not a huge burden on him to come to something at night.
Mhm.
What else
Sounds
was
good to
on
me. What else do we have on
agenda?
the agenda?
I think that's pretty much it. I have emailed all of the returning staff to start that process and find out who's coming back. I was kind of waiting to see a little bit to post jobs, but I mean, certainly we'll need lifeguards. We'll need, actually, we could do that really quick. We'll need, what do you call it, maintenance. We'll need,
Dan,
snack shop.
I'm just throwing this out there. I think we post your maintenance jobs like we're getting a full-time person.
Well, so if that's the case, maybe we should wait briefly and revise those maintenance job descriptions slightly.
Yeah,
And
I
then
mean,
for
I
right
think
now,
I
I'll post
think, all
lifeguards.
right, so we hold off on the maintenance positions
Kinda like a week.
because no, and not even, we could hold off.
Just to
We
review.
could hold off till February because we want to see, at least let's get a general feel for Jeremy and the board and the finance committee and what their thoughts are on this full-time position before we post those maintenance positions. If we have to split it back out to 3, then we split it back out to 3.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Of the kids that we had last year, so I know Brian, there's a chance Brian actually may be able to return. I'm not sure. He might be even going back to school.
That's bad to hear, actually.
Too
bad.
Apparently, I guess he's having a hard time finding a job. I don't know. I guess he's had several interviews, but he's still looking. But
Dan,
what's he looking for?
engineering.
Yeah, right.
He's an engineer, but fresh out of school, I think it's not a great job market right now.
We're hiring here. It's not an engineering job, but
yeah, I don't know if he's interested in that. The kid that I'd love to get back is that kid Tyler that used to work for us, but he probably makes way more money in the private sector than he'll ever make for the town. I don't know if I'll ask him, Brian. I don't know if he'd want to, if he'd want to do that.
If he's not finding something.
I mean, they're good jobs.
You're hiring
Pay
now.
well, you get pension.
He probably needs work now.
It's, and he seems to like that work. But yeah, and then I assume Cage and Gavin were interested in returning. I haven't heard from them.
Yeah, like I said, let's hold off on
But
what we're doing with that, because if you have 4 people or 3 people that are interested in coming back, but we're only hiring 2, that poses a
Right.
problem.
well, and if we're truly hiring 2 people that we need them to work from mid-May to mid-September, that potentially excludes some of our returning people that are still high school students. So, which, certainly for a year we can figure it out, but long term, I think we'll have to tap a different market to fill those positions. I have a parent I'm going to reach out to about the beach director position that I talked to last summer that I think was interested. I think if things go according to plan, we will not have to hire too many counselors.
That's good.
I'm actually hesitant to post this far and wide because I don't want to get 1,200 applications that we don't need. And then I think we got to figure out the junior counselors because we'll get 1,200 applications and we really only can take 6 or 10 of them. I know last year we did 14 and 15. I've been talking to Alan to see if we think we want to limit it to just 15-year-olds, because guaranteed next year we will not be able to take all of the junior counselors as counselors.
Yeah.
we had a big like hole. There were a lot of people left, but I think now we hired a lot of people that were 16, 17, 18 that'll be with us for a few years, which is good. But I think that's where that is. I need to finalize all our pricing and everything for the summer programming. I've got to get these stupid minutes done and our annual report. So we probably should, maybe we can meet again, even if just full remote in the next week or two and knock those
Yeah,
out.
it'd probably be a good idea to go over
And-
what you proposed and
Yeah.
just looking at your agenda, I see the continued discussion on capital projects, update and continued discussion on Morrison Drive and future garage for parks. One of the three options they're exploring right now is using that building on Morrison Drive for a senior center.
Well, it's interesting to me, and I know, so the town owns the property behind it now. So now you could have a separate entrance if you wanted it.
Yep.
If you did that, I think from Parks' perspective, I think the current senior center is a better location than the Morrison Drive shell. And the other thing is it abuts all that property, the paddock property at 52 that they were going to use for housing or athletic fields. And it sounds like they've gone out to bid twice on the housing and they're not getting any bids. So, and obviously they're going to do this whole field study thing too, but perhaps that location would make a lot more sense for athletic fields, especially if it's right next to your home base for parks. I mean, there's a lot of moving pieces, but
yeah, I don't know. It
sounds like
Parks,
they're just
there's two options for Parks homes, but it all hinges on what happens with the senior center. And obviously one sounds like, and I don't quote me on this, but it sounds like either the current senior center would end up going to Parks or Parks DPW, however they end up doing it. And then the other building across the street would be for something else, or vice versa. They do something with the current senior center and then we got to do something with the building across the street.
Yeah, I did mention to Elena, I said I hoped we weren't just going to get stuck on this project and put everything on hold now because of the, unfortunately, and I was, I voted for the senior center, but people voted no twice. I do think there's other things that the town needs to explore instead of just stopping all progress on anything so we can do more studies, unless they truly have a new revolutionary plan that is viable. I don't know. I mean, I guess.
Don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
And then, because the other thing I'd love to explore too is doing if we don't utilize that space by the bathrooms for parks, perhaps getting a modular building up there for the camp, which the camp I think could pay for over a few years with revenue from the camp and be done with going to Clough School, because that's a whole pain in the butt. And expand some of our, again, and be able to expand our recreational offerings and have those abilities. But unfortunately, it sounds like not much is happening with the garage at this point. It probably would be good to point out to them as part of this whole discussion that that's still a major issue, that, you're going to create this position and hire somebody and they're going to be working out of a shed.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, we can accommodate some stuff over here if need be, but it's going to be limited.
Yeah, I mean, if integrating it with highway maybe opens, but there's only so much room. There was only, back when we did have the parks truck, they had to move other stuff out of the way.
I know.
Hey, you were
Yep.
So it's not much better.
I'm thinking if they do a parks DPW, if they merge, will the commissioners be no longer? You really wouldn't need them, right?
In order to get rid of the parks commissioner,
commissioners,
you'd have to go to town meeting and make some big changes.
Commissioners we're not involved in day-to-day operations.
Yeah.
So you look at a DPW, that's day-to-day operations. The commissioners would still be, in my eyes, it could go either way, but the commissioners could still have a role in decision-making for the Parks Department But there would have to be discussion with whoever is in charge of the DPW.
Yeah, right.
I think one of the idea, and I don't know if other towns have done this, is, perhaps, if the town truly went that way, maybe you would restructure and have like a DPW board, because you have a water commission, a parks commission, where you have a board that sets policy, sets fees, big picture stuff, and then day-to-day operations. I honestly think that gets into the realm of the town exploring having a charter and restructuring. I don't see any of those big sweeping changes happening anytime soon.
Yeah.
I think right now it's just reintegrating the landscape maintenance with highway.
I mean, that needs to be our focus right now.
If they build a water system,
our focus is,
whole...
I know I've been hearing it from Dan since who knows when, that we need a full-time person. I think that's what we need to focus on. That should be number one priority right now.
Yeah. There's never going to be another Dick Joyner that you're going to find that wants to come part-time and put in all that. And, unfortunately, those people just don't exist anymore. And if they do,
Right.
they look at full-time work.
Right.
But the other reality is you're getting somebody that even is old enough to kind of do that kind of a job because they're retired and stuff. I don't know if you get those people in Mendon anymore either. It's all the people I know that are retired are not looking for side jobs if they can help it.
Yeah.
So, I just think there's all kinds of rationale for that position, and I would even, Dan, if you could do it, I'm thinking out loud here, but even you showed the amount of double booking that you have in your calendar. I know that I'm big into, Danielle and I use the Google Calendar, but we can see that we started doing that because we were getting so busy. But I'm sure I'm thinking of you and thinking in the springtime, the amount of double booking that you have. And it could be double booking that you've got to get, not just for spring, but even now, like the annual report and then the budget. And then you hit a point when, how do you have time for that stuff? If you're out having to maintain all these properties.
Right.
I think we have to show it's not just during the onset of the season or at the end of the season per se, it's all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And what's going to happen in the middle, which is also maintenance, highway, the value of that for you guys is, it just seems like such a win-win situation. But we have to show that, and then the value of freeing your time up, because the other thing that's so critically important to this town is to be able to think forward and say, okay, what are not necessarily capital, the expenditures, but even just what do we want to offer the town? What do we want to do? How much can you get involved in any of that? You can't. I remember at one point and they're struggling, I hear, but the youth basketball program, and I said to the commissioners at the time, it might have been you and Tom, when I was ready to give it up, and you guys were like, we just can't do it. We just can't do it. We don't have the time. And that's very much winter, but there's all these things that, and I'm telling you that from what I'm hearing, that youth basketball program is struggling a bit because they can't keep the leadership in place. But and I'm not suggesting that. I'm just suggesting that.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean.
Dream out loud, but they're not really dreams. The town's looking for that stuff. You hear it all the time.
Well, yeah. Look at Rock the Block and what's parks could take a more prominent role in managing an event like that. I know, like that we've had that conversation about numerous different leagues. I think at one point we talked about the concession stands when they didn't want to run them. There's all these opportunities that are more aligned with parks and recreation versus just the bare bones maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the handicap walkways, that account's been on the books since 2013. The bathrooms at the beach, that's a whole project to coordinate and plan and figure out.
Well, that's the important part, is that I don't think you have to convince anybody of that, but to say what's involved in that alone, the bathroom project.
And we haven't even mentioned it, but the other part of that is we're talking about grounds, But there's the facilities aspect of this full-time person that we're asking for too, because right now, facilities maintenance either goes to Dan or it comes to highway. There's nobody designated to handle that type of stuff. And then in the wintertime, that's coordinating services for your furnaces. There's all kinds of stuff that's in part of that. I think this job is going to solve a lot of issues for the town if they're willing to go for it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just, having a body.
I've been thinking
That's
just to
pretty
put
good
thoughts
door.
ahead, but even the flooding that we had in the basement at the, you know what I mean? You had to deal with that, right? Who dealt with that? Nobody. You had to. I don't know
Both
how.
of us.
Right.
It came
you
to
know.
both of us.
And I don't know if you have a plumbing issue that maybe, I do whatever I can in my own home, but who does that, right? I mean, there's a lot of list of things that happen because some of the stuff's just old, needs to be replaced. So if the town won't fund the money to replace it, somebody's got to fix it.
It's the same conversation with, with the parks, saying like, hey, I need you to go replace this faucet. And you can just do that. I don't need to tell you how to use a wrench and turn a valve.
Like, okay, so
that
you
kind of stuff.
You gotta you're right. Like you need something fixed at the parks department. That full-time person takes care of it after he makes sure that his 2 seasonal staff are set on what they're doing. Then he goes and addresses that and goes back to his seasonal staff.
You kind of have.
And it also frees me up to do that stuff.
We have to overwhelm them with all the work that you do. I mean, the majority of people that know you in this town know you do a tremendous amount of work, and you get a lot of positive affirmation on Facebook or whatever social media for that. People really stand up for you, but I think you got to overwhelm them and say, okay, this is all the stuff that has to get done. That gets done. Along with all the administrative duties you have, Don't be shy. Don't be humble. You have to really be, showcase. I mean, now's not the time to say, well, I like it and I'll do it. And it's just, I do my job, but you have to showcase it.
Yeah, definitely. One maintenance kid's coming back so far, Gavin. He just emailed. Yeah, so I'll try and make a listing of some of this stuff and some of the projects that we need to, that have like fallen by the wayside, if you will. I don't know how, I guess we gotta set, when does Jeremy want all this stuff?
So budget stuff's gotta be in by the 22nd, so a week from tomorrow. So budget requests, then he's gonna schedule meetings to sit down and go over. I think it's budget requests are next Wednesday, and then capital requests are the 29th. And then he schedules time with department heads to sit down and discuss budget requests. And that's when you are able to say to them, hey, listen, this is why we're asking for this. And you show them the supporting documents. So we have a little bit of time. I just don't know how quick he's going to want to sit down with these department heads. And Dan, that's totally up to you. When you have your discussion with Parks, if you would like me there to discuss this portion with him, I'm fine with that. If not, you want to talk to him, that's fine too.
Yeah, well, I almost think this is like a third separate discussion. Talk about highway, talk about parks, and let's talk about this new thing. And maybe it almost should be in a meeting where we can get all three of us to meet with him.
Yep.
And flesh out any further conversation. Well, I guess I'll put this together. I don't know if we want to try and meet again next week or the week after.
I'm available either, pretty much. And my only commitment, like I told you, is taking my grandson to speech. Other than that, I'm around. Well, I'm golfing too, so.
I think that the main thing is just sending in the numbers for right now.
Next week, I only have something on Wednesday at 10 a.m.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Yeah, excuse me.
So we want to meet like later on Wednesday, or earlier on Wednesday.
Yeah, I think you said 10 a.m. is all you got, right? You're muted, John.
That's the only meeting that I have is 10 a.m. on
Oh.
Wednesday. That's the only time I can't do.
So Wednesday, I can't do like between 12:30 and 2.
You want to plan on Thursday? Does that work?
That's the day I golf. I golf every Thursday, and usually I do lunch after, so that's a tough day for me.
Maybe Tuesday. Was Tuesday good?
Is that enough time for you to get this put together, Dan?
I mean, I think right now it's just a fairly basic cost and description, and then
Yep.
I think the
If
rest of
you want to do
I think the rest of it we
Tuesday,
need to
that's fine.
flesh out with Jeremy in terms of what gets presented at a public meeting,
Right. Yeah, Tuesday's fine.
but maybe tentatively do that for now so it's on the calendar, and then
Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday morning.
I said later is always better for me, but whatever works. I mean, I know the brothers
Then
thing is
do-
that day.
What brothers thing?
Isn't that the brothers dinner the 21st?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they do the, do a
Yeah.
meeting at 1
So-
o'clock again. It's not a big deal, right?
Yeah, it's fine with me.
Yeah, fine. That's good for me.
Then maybe do you want to just meet remotely?
Yeah, we might as well. It's just to go over this. It's just to go over this before we submit it, right?
Yeah, I think go over this, and then I'll see if I can get the annual report done and the finalize some of the program
Well,
stuff.
annual report's supposed to be in tomorrow.
Yeah, I know. I told her I would. I used to give them to Laura by like April because they don't actually print the book until then. But I felt bad for Katie. I didn't want to figure out I'd actually get the stuff done. I have to. It's all the numbers I got to pull, and
All right. Yeah, whatever worked for you.
so I realized I didn't fill in a bunch of stuff from this summer.
All right. So if ain't nothing else, I'm making a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
All right. Well, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, let me stop this first.